Happy to go?
It's good.
Great, thank you. Good morning, members. Thank you. We quorum now, so I believe we're now ready to start. Good morning. Welcome to this meeting of the West Ham Park Committee. As you're aware, the public element of this meeting is being live streamed, and those participating in the meeting have given consent to their inclusion. The recording will be available on the City Corporation's YouTube channel following the meeting, and it shall be retained for up to 1 civic year. Whilst we endeavour to live stream all our public meetings, technical difficulties may sometimes prevent live broadcast. In these instances, we aim to upload a recording after the end of the meeting. All personal data will be processed in accordance with the Data Protection Act 2018, and for any information on that, please feel free to contact us. At item 1, we have apologies. We've received apologies from Deputy Benjamin Murphy and Wendy Mead and Karina Dostalova. Are there any further apologies I should be aware of, Ms. Whitmore?
Ray Courage sent his apologies, and I think Justin should be coming, but if he's been detained, then he'll send his apologies.
Thank you very much. Thank you. At item 2, notice of declarations. Do any members wish to make declarations of interest? I believe Ms. Lockhouse.
Oh, thank you. That's right. Yes, I will for item wherever it's gone. Item 13, because I'm a Newham councillor.
Thank you. And Mr. Whitworth. Oh, apologies.
You're on mute, John.
Yes, I've got the same declaration. I'm a councillor for Newham and West Ham Ward.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me for attending remotely, but I've got another meeting immediately after this one.
Thank you very much, councillor. Put that down. So here at item 3, we have the public minutes and non-public summaries of the previous meeting on pages 5 to 14. These are to agree. Chair.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Not aware of any issues arising from the minutes changes, but I'll ask here now. Yes, Caroline.
Could we just maybe minute about Joy Laguda's?
Yeah, I'm coming to that.
You're coming to that. Thank you.
Anything else? No, I think that's it. Thank you, Town Clerk. Yes, on that point, members, officers, those attending, we've got a number joining us online today, more than we normally would, partly due to the weather, the busyness of the season, and all sorts of other things going on. I thought this would be a very good point for us just to pause and, in the first instance, to note formally our thanks to Joy Laguda, who has served on this committee for many years faithfully. She has made a wonderful contribution to the work of this committee. She has in many ways been the eyes and ears on the ground, reporting at each and every meeting on her observations as she's gone through her rounds of the park. I know she's a stalwart of her community in Newham. I've spoken to John previously, and I can see him nodding, but John, we'd be most grateful if you would also take our thanks. I have written to Joy separately, but the committee would like to note formally that thanks to Joy.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'll certainly convey the recognition of this committee to Joy and her thanks for her valuable service over many years. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, John. And of course, that means that there was a very brief vacancy, which I'm delighted to say has been filled by the London Borough of Newham, and Jane Lofthouse joins us today, having been appointed. Jane, a very, very warm welcome. We look forward to working with you and, of course, continuing to work with John, our colleagues in Newham, for the maintenance and betterment of West Ham.
Thank you very much. I have been told I've got very big shoes to fill, but I shall do my very best to fill them. And it'd be a pleasure to join you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Welcome, Jane. Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. Turning now to item 4, we have the Assistant Director's report for information on pages 15 to 42. Chair.
Thank you, Town Clerk. I can see we have a bill on screen. Just to note for all those present. I know invitations have gone out for Park Fest next weekend, and I hope as many of us as possible will be out on the Sunday to enjoy the park, to meet with friends and members of the community, as we in effect sort of mark the end of the 150th celebrations this summer, which is set to be a great day. Over to you, Bill.
Thank you, Chairman. And apologies that I was not able to make it in person today. As the town clerk noted, my report is for information, but there were just a couple items I wanted to call to members' attention. The first, Chairman, is what you just mentioned. Park Fest is proceeding. We're looking forward to this community-centric event very much, and we do hope that as many community members as possible will be able to attend and help us continue to celebrate West Ham Park and all that it means for the local community that we are serving, and of course, who are our very strong partners in putting on this event in the coming week. In addition, Chairman, I wanted to just call members' attention to some additional information that's been provided by our colleagues at the City Surveyors Department at the end of my report. I know that we've gotten some questions previously about how we work with our colleagues in the City Surveyors Department, so we have asked them to provide a synopsis of the important works that they deliver, and they've done that and provided some additional information looking out for the next 4 additional years on the works that'll be delivered in the park to make sure that we're investing in the assets and the facilities in this space. So those were just 2 items, and I did have some photos and a presentation that I can go through briefly if you're okay with that, Chairman.
Thanks, Bill. Yes.
Okay, and can I just confirm if you can see the presentation?
Not yet. There, yeah. Oh, yes, we can.
Brilliant.
There we go.
Okay.
We've got it. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Chairman. So I think it's important to begin with a photo of the incredible ornamental garden at West Ham Park, which I think is a destination not only locally but regionally, and give some credit to our amazing gardening team that keeps it looking incredible. We mentioned at the last meeting, and there's an update in the Assistant Director's report on some tree decompaction work that the tree team is doing to make sure that we're doing all we can to keep the trees in as healthy a state as possible. And you will see a summary in my report about a study, a multi-year study that they're doing to make sure that we're using best practice and using the most modern equipment possible to make sure that the trees remain in good health. The committee is very well aware of our community partnerships and how important volunteering is in the park. This is, of course, personified by the Friends of West Ham Park. But in addition, there's a number of other volunteers that volunteer throughout the park, including in the Iris Garden. And here we have a photo of Chris, one of our longtime volunteers at work this year, who has been supporting us since 2018. And also assists us with research on suitable plants and shrubs that would be appropriate in the space, and is also Royal Horticultural Society trained. So we really benefit a lot from great partnerships with local volunteers who are not only providing labor in the park, but expertise and helping us care for the park day to day, and really turn the park into a bit of a living laboratory for the entire community. We were proud again to host an Eid prayer on the 6th of June, and I think the members are very well aware of how important the space is to the local community and certainly local faith groups for a place for them to come together. Just a very nice photo, I think, of the West Ham Park in full bloom this time of year. We've got some azaleas and some climbing roses in the ornamental garden and in other parts of the park. And if you have not been to the park recently, this is really a great time to go and take in, again, the work that our incredible grounds maintenance team and our gardening team do. And the learning team, of course, is continuing to remain very, very busy in the park. In April and May, they were able to reach over 1,000 primary school students alone. And they have been engaging with young people through a program at Into University, which is a charity that supports people from disadvantaged neighborhoods, and using the park as a platform for learning and engagement and access to nature. And finally, they continue to do really important work with special education needs and disability students throughout the park and providing tailored and long-term nature-based learning to this community of fellow residents. And just a photo of some other students at work from a year 3 class from Park Primary, involved in a session that was involved in creating habitat in the Wildlife Extension Garden, and also an area for pond amphibians to hibernate in over the summer. And we were really thrilled to partner with the environmental studies teacher at the school, who is also a member of the Friends of West Ham Park. So Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to share an update and some photos of what's going on in the park this time of year. And I would just note that we are certainly in the high season at West Ham Park now, and just want to acknowledge the hard work of our team, as you can see, and the hard work of our volunteers to make sure that West Ham Park is fulfilling all that it can be for the local community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And I think I can speak on behalf of the entire committee when I say it is wonderful to see how West Ham is contributing to the delivery of the natural environment strategies. Members will have seen the updated stats in terms of our ambition for the year and where we've got to. But in most of these cases, we are at the same level, if not further, than where we anticipated we would be. And I saw John a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this point around access and learning, and just how critical that is, but also the feedback from local communities. I think West Ham, in one sense, if we look at the millions of visitors that open or use our open spaces every year, it has a much higher degree of sort of local involvement and community stakeholding. And it's really brilliant to see those messages beginning to be repeated back to us around, particularly around learning and access. So that is absolutely brilliant. Questions, comments, observations, Catherine?
Yeah, I would, that's great what you're doing. The question I want to ask is about the Easter Fun Fair, which ran for 8 days. The first question is, what area of the park did it affect? And the second question is, does that include the trading? There's a trading restriction on the park, which I thought was just for selling things. And I'm wondering how it complies with that, but it's because it's a limited number of days, the trading restriction. Thank you.
Did you hear that, Bill? Yes, thank you. Good.
Thank you for the question, Carolyn, and I will ask Charlotte to provide some additional detail as well, our head of parks and operations, who's available in person. All trading would be, any trading that's occurring would certainly be in compliance with any restrictions that are in place, and we have a robust event policy as well on top of that. And our event manager works very hard to make sure that that is adhered to in all trading, in all event applications. And I will ask Charlotte if you can clarify exactly where in the park the fun fair exists. I know it's been happening for several years.
Thank you, Bill. It occurs near to Linden Gate, in the area near to Linden Gate.
I'm raising the question because these fun fairs tend to escalate, and it started off with a couple of days and now it's going to 8 days. And we've seen this elsewhere with Brockwell Park.
Oh, I see this.
Having significant impact, and it's taken to the High Court, a High Court ruling. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Chairman, would you like me to come in?
Yes, go for it, Bill.
Thank you for the question, Carolyn, and I understand better the context now. We do know that the fun fair is very popular locally and is something that the community certainly looks forward to. We do give a lot of time to how long it's on site and ensuring that we're striking the right balance between bringing entertainment and enjoyment to the park and to the community without overstressing the ecosystem. And thinking about Brockwell Park, which we of course are aware of and have discussed at length, I think it's an entirely different order of magnitude. What we saw at Brockwell was an event build for well over a month that triggered some need from planning permission, as I understand it. And this is a very different scale of event. We don't currently do any events that are at the size of what they do in Brockwell Park, and don't have any plans to do that. But we are aware of that, and we're making sure that we're striking that right balance, and of course adhering to any local authority and corporation policies and procedures.
Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add, some from previous years, there were queues of hundreds of people waiting to get into the fair. And it was felt that if there was a longer period, then there wouldn't be the rush and therefore the queues, which may cause problems. So it was felt with the park team that we discussed at the length of time and that it would be appropriate to ensure all the local community could have access to it and there wouldn't be a rush in a condensed number of days.
Thank you, Charlotte. And thank you, Bill. I think it's an important balance to strike. I think the point on access and community engagement, and I think we'll talk about it further later on in this committee meeting in terms of our own ambition as to what community facilities can be provided, how we build up a sustainable ability to facilitate the ambition of the immediate neighbourhoods and Newham as a whole. Very good. Any other questions or comments? No, thank you, Bill. Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. Item 5 is the risk management update, which is for decision. This can be found on pages 43 to 54.
Thank you. Jo.
Thank you, Chair. So the report presents the summary risk register of the risk currently held by West Ham Park Charity and seeks members' confirmation that the risks identified are the correct or relevant ones and that there's an appropriate risk management process in place. You would also note that there's a new risk that has been added to the register recently, and that's reported in detail around work-related stress members of staff. And we can provide more detail on that. Bill will be able to do that.
Thank you, Jo. I mean, I think it's worth noting at this point that we've been on something of a journey here in terms of us coming to a balanced understanding, but also a balance of input as to what we want mitigation to look like and how that's fed through into the committee. There are a number of members who are not with us who have spoken to me after the papers have come out that have expressed concern around this particular risk, obviously appearing. I know we have all had conversations over the last few years around asking officers and colleagues to do more with the same budgets and resources that they have, and clearly that was always going to have an onward impact. I think in one sense we can take assurance from the mitigation that's been put in there in terms of us being aware, but us also highlighting what needs to be done to address it. But I think it is absolutely essential that we have confidence that we're not going to be in a position which I think we could point to in other London boroughs where big projects have been pushed and then suddenly there's been a massive spike in sickness, in absences and in the departure of colleagues. And those people are obviously our greatest asset in terms of sustaining not only the park, but also the ambitions that we have for its future. So I wonder, Bill, maybe if you could just talk to the committee a little around I suppose that first point around what the trigger has been for the escalation onto the active register at this stage, what we're doing in terms of managing it, and I think then just that reassurance or assurance point around access to help support occupational health where necessary, and how we might best support you and monitor this going forward.
Yes, of course, Chairman, and thank you for that, and thank you for your support. As you've noted, there's been a significant amount of change recently at the corporation, which I don't think I need to belabor, but there's been the pandemic, the target operating model led to a reduction in resource and some other cost cuttings, as well as some other important modernizations and changes that are happening at the corporation, in addition to a significant turnover in staff, including management staff in our division that oversees West Ham Park, and then underlaid by the Natural Environment Charity Review and a number of other change management processes. And so where we find ourselves now is actively managing and addressing and trying to strike the right balance between the demands on officers and the capacity we have as a smaller pool of officers to deliver upon this. And I do want to assure you that we are actively supporting our entire team and availing ourselves of the resources that exist at the corporation within HR, within occupational health, and inclusion on the risk register. After a conversation with our management team and the members of our team across West Ham Park, we thought was the right move because we want to actively manage this situation and report it to committee. We know that that this is important to the committee as well. And some of the important steps that we're taking to ensure that we're able to strike that balance between demands on our time and the available time that we have are numerous. And the first one we talked about at length at the last committee meeting, and that was taking this really important step towards a really robust approach to business planning and work planning. And we talked about this the last time we met, in doing our best to articulate what officers believe we can deliver in any given year, and communicating that and having a dialogue with the committee, and where we've been overambitious, having a conversation with the committee on what may need to be deferred or pushed to future years. We're reviewing staff schedules to make sure that we're striking the right balance, and importantly, trying to find more resource. Now, one of these ways will be through hiring in a new position, the head of development and partnerships. Interviews are actually ongoing right now, and we're hopeful that they can help us avail ourselves of flexibility that will come out of the charity review to identify more resource. And then through that charity review process, really articulating what the demands on us are and ensuring that we're doing our best to communicate the true need and the true cost of delivering the service and advocating for the resources we need. And then, as you mentioned, Chairman, just making sure that we're availing ourselves of the resources that exist throughout the corporation to support our staff and keeping that a live conversation throughout the entire team, but also with the committee. So we're taking an active approach to addressing this, hence the inclusion on the risk register, and working very hard to ensure that we strike that balance.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill. Caroline.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think this is totally the right approach. It should be here. There were two things that I just wanted to raise. One was that I think in the minutes, and perhaps further outside of this meeting, I think we do need to make representation to the town clerk, who was very concerned to have the Tom not talked about anymore and to have everything tied up and closed. That I think we do need to make representation that the ripple effects for us, both at West Ham Park and across the wider natural environment, are still very much there and being picked up by the operational face on the ground. And I think it's a really, really important message. And the second thing is that I don't know if I'm speaking for other members of the committee, but I think it would be quite useful. Bill's touched on a couple of the mitigating things that are being done, but given that our remit here is to be absolutely certain that officers have got the appropriate mitigating things in place, I just wondered if perhaps at the next meeting we could have a bit of a timeline of where we are and the specifics of who's been employed, where the gaps still are, where the various pressures are coming. I think that would be helpful for people. Thank you, Chair.
I completely endorse what you're saying. I think, Caroline, we referred to it elsewhere as the Tom shadow. And that is exactly what we're seeing here, is that it's one thing to alter the present or the moving forward narrative, but it is often those that are not present in this building on the out. The sort of satelliting around the corporate centre. So I think that is a really good point, and something which I think we need to take up formally, obviously together with officers.
Thanks. Hey, Bill. A couple of points from me. What are we doing to support the management of the team down there? And what are the current engagement scores looking like? Because we had a deep dive on that a couple of committees ago, and it'd be good to see what's being said through that process.
Yeah, thank you.
Bill, is there anything more you can add at this point?
I'm just going to note that we have hired in Park Guard. We continue to maintain them to provide additional support to officers on the ground. And as far as the engagement, we're continuing to engage thoroughly, as the presentation showed, and I think continuing to increase the number of events and the number of volunteers that we're working with. It is not a panacea, but we really benefit tremendously and deliver services we couldn't otherwise through volunteer and engagement activities.
Yeah, sorry, I meant the engagement of the volunteers and the staff, and which is driving the turnover, I guess. So that's the engagement I mean of the employees.
I apologize. I didn't quite understand the
Yeah.
question.
So the engagement, we had an engagement survey which we looked at, I think a few committees ago,
Yeah.
which was really positive, and the outcome of that was actually everything's looking good. And obviously just engaging with the employees on the ground and the volunteers about actually what they're feeling and thinking before obviously they go off sick or leave the organisation.
I see. Thank you for the clarity. I apologize for the misunderstanding. So we do keep an ongoing conversation, and one of the things, Charlotte's on site very often, as is her management team, to make sure that we're talking to staff on an ongoing basis. And what I've been doing is meeting with all of the teams across all of North London. So there's about 125 employees or positions. And I met with the West Ham Park team recently, which informed the inclusion of this risk, because it's important for me in my role to make sure that I'm hearing from directly what the day-to-day experience is like. And that will remain a live conversation and something that I continue to do being on site, as will Charlotte and her management team.
Charlotte wants to add on to that point.
Thank you, Chair. And just to add to that, we also include mental health and wellbeing as a standing agenda item in all team meetings and in our subdivisional health and safety meeting. We've also recently qualified 5 members of the team within North London Open Spaces who are mental health first aiders, and they are there to support and to listen and to sort of be there as a network should any member of staff want to talk to somebody for support mechanism as well.
Thank you, Charlotte. John, and then John. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Chair. We're all aware of the wonderful work that the staff perform, you know, on the park to maintain it in such a good condition. But the risk is here, obviously, that it's taking a toll on some of the members of the staff. In number 13 on page 45, it does refer to the potential impact of greater staff absence and turnover. Now, is this mentioned because there has already been a greater staff absence and turnover, or is it a fear that the stress may cause this?
Bill.
Thank you.
The answer is both. I obviously can't discuss personnel matters in detail, but talking to the team, you know, we are getting the sense that they are very stressed and feeling overworked in a number of areas in some positions, hence the inclusion on the list. And we're also responding to incidents that we've had across all of North London. This is a risk that has been added for all 3 of the charities and 4 of the spaces that we're responsible for. So it's on the risk register for both committees.
Thank you.
Bill, could I just follow up on that point in terms of actually the personnel risk? Are there high risk members of staff that have already been identified? I mean, I think what would sort of raise concern immediately from the paper is the idea of individuals spending a good portion of their time alone working. And if those same individuals are also working extra hours and those are unpaid hours, in one sense, that's sort of the most extreme position. And I wonder if again, I think to Caroline's point on a timeline, it would be quite helpful to understand how much of that affects the entire group, or whether or not we're looking at sort of a group of half a dozen. I think that would just help us quantify this, because I'm very aware that, you know, staff in natural environment tend to be incredibly passionate and devoted to their space with a sense of pride, but that can very easily sip into pushing oneself, doing things that are not necessarily in the best interests of one's own well-being, and there's a long curve before that then manifests into something that we can monitor and ultimately then report into committee.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Chairman. To answer it, it's both general and specific. There are specific positions and specific members of the team, because of the nature of their role, or because of the unique pressures on them, that challenges are felt most acutely, and that is a very live conversation that we remain in communication with those specific members of the team. In addition, though, to getting general feedback that staffing is just not where it's at. And I think there's an ongoing challenge with staff. It's not where it needs to be. There's an ongoing challenge with staffing, but one of the risks that came out of the meeting we recently had, though, is that points of failure are very easy to reach. That if somebody were to go out sick, or somebody were to be on holiday unexpectedly or have to leave, it really would mean perhaps lone working or not sufficient numbers of staff in the park. So we're addressing an ongoing issue, but also thinking about the future and what would happen if, unfortunately somebody had to leave unexpectedly or did go out because of this. So again, hence us including it in the risk register and understanding the committee wanting to support us and us reporting to you what we're doing as well as what the issues are.
Thanks, Bill. Jane, then Catherine.
I don't know if this is relevant, but I was just wondering, is there sufficient supply of qualified staff to cover the roles that are needed? Or is that one of the reasons that people are doing too much because there aren't enough qualified people there? Supply and demand is what I'm thinking of in that terms.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Recruitment can be very difficult in the open space industry, and we have seen difficulties with recruitment in recent years, not only at the corporation, but across all of London. We are undertaking a recruitment now to fill one vacant position for an operative ranger. Finding casual staff or short-term staff can be a challenge to make sure that they have the suitable qualifications. But to try to be responsive to this, we had a meeting yesterday with the agency that the corporation works with for agency staffing, so we can articulate our need to them and try to encourage them to do what they can to build up that pool of support where needed. And one thing I didn't mention on the previous question, Chairman, that I should have, though, is where we're seeing staff work in excess of what is reasonable, we are actively encouraging them not to do it and telling them that this is not what is expected, and making clear that, as superintendent, it is my responsibility to then communicate, up into the committee, where the pressure points are. Again, hence the inclusion on the risk register and having that dynamic conversation about what can and cannot be delivered in any given year through the various planning processes that we're trying to implement. So I do think we've done a good job at taking that first step in business planning. It will remain a live conversation, and we'll encourage staff to do what is reasonable and what can be done. And then it's up to us as managers to communicate with the committee where the pressure points are, or what may need to be deleted or deferred.
Thanks, Bill. Catherine.
Thank you. First of all, as I understand it, we're very lucky with the staff we have at West Ham Park, because we have quite a number of staff who have been working the park. Sorry, working the park for. Sorry, working in the park for a long time, which is fantastic. My feeling is, especially having read this, is that the stress may be related to slightly lower numbers of staff, but I'm not clear. I think if we looked at longer term data, we might find there were less staff than now than there were previously. I have asked this question before and I was told there weren't less staff, but I'm not sure. It depends what you measure from when, and I think it sounds as though you're wanting additional funding to increase staff resources, which is fantastic, but maybe it's just not actually even increasing them, it's bringing them back to the level they were. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that it does depend on the period over which we measure. I think Bill's comment earlier was telling, in the sense that we've obviously set and continue to have a very ambitious plan for the park, one that the committee has wholeheartedly endorsed. I think obviously the new role, head of development, there is an element of that which is looking at expanding and being able to deliver in the longer term. The question then comes back to, I think, that this specific risk about maintenance and sustaining where we are at the moment. And I wonder, Bill, I mean, just on Catherine's point, is there a point from which we can measure and give a definitive answer in terms of, I realize it's a moving feast in terms of what is necessary, because it's a completely different part to what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, in terms of, the work that your team are required to do. But I just wonder if there is a point that you've ever measured from.
There is, and one of the common points of feedback we got is that the risk and that the experience became most acute following the target operating model, where I think three positions were lost and were not able to be refilled. It was 3 or 4. I can confirm that. I'm pretty sure it's 3. And that is when what was already a challenging job, and managing open spaces, public open spaces, is challenging, but that was when it became most acute. And we've been managing that as best we can. But we are at the point where additional resources needed.
Yeah, I think we all completely agree on that point. I think what we need to then, and we will talk about this later in the committee meeting, is we really have to put our heads together in terms of how a sustainable the new funding model is implemented, and where we put our efforts behind ensuring that that is not only a success, but is done in a way that it can actually enable that delivery in the longer term. William.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't going to comment on this, but as has been pointed out by Bill Lestato, it is something that's raised in the other open spaces that for which he's responsible. But I don't see at the National Environment Board level that this is picked up that much. I had understood that the TOM model was always meant to be something that would be reviewed. So if there is scope for revisiting what at the time was presented to it as adequate staffing. I think experience has taught us otherwise, so I think this is very valuable. And certainly I support the way it's been put in the risk register. I'm just wondering if we should be bumping it up to the more strategic level as well. But maybe something we'll come back to.
Good point, William. And I think given the conversations the chairs of those spaces are having, it's going to be something that we're all going to have to work on together, because there is a common conclusion. I think from a corporation perspective, this has only heightened the need to ensure that the review comes out, again, both from a governance perspective and a funding perspective, to enable charities to be in a position where they can and will deliver on the needs of those spaces. And I think striking that balance between what we would see as sort of central provision and what we then need to drive from the individual charities themselves, that's a key balance. And at the moment, I don't think we're quite there. I think there's a good concept, but it's going to have to be animated over time. Anyone else? Not missed anyone on screen. Joe, Bill, thank you both very much for that very helpful discussion. Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. Item 6 is Revenue Outturn 2024-2025. This is for information and can be found on pages 55 to 60 of your agenda pack.
Excellent. Thank you. Naranjan.
Thank you, Chairman. So the revenue outturn report for the services overseen by this committee in 24-25.
Oh, sorry. It's this blasting box behind us.
Is that any better? Yeah. Apologies. Yes. So the services overseen by this committee in 2024-25 shows a net expenditure of 1.485 million, resulting in an unfavourable position of £197,000 against a budget of 1.288 million. The main drivers for these overspends are a £95,000 rephasing of planned expenditure against various CWP projects, £68,000 in depreciation expenditure on the West Ham Park playground, and £16,000 in additional audit fees incurred for the overruns on the 23-24 audit of accounts. And no carry forward bids were submitted for activities overseen by this committee. Thank you.
It's helpful, and thank you. Very, very clear paper. Are there any observation, comment? William?
Can I just understand, obviously, West Ham Park is one of our pilot projects for potential grant funding. Well, it is grant funding. Your report obviously is looking at 24-25. As I understand it, the local budget room has been met and hasn't changed. This is, from what you've identified, the shortfall is essentially how one accounts for what one might call capital budget, sort of when you spend the central risk or cyclical works program.
Yeah.
Does that mean next year it might be lower because you've had to move things around?
That's right. It will have to be reformatted. The grant funding model is in place on the local risk. How the other risks are presented on this report has yet to be determined, but it will be presented differently. Yes.
Yeah. So though one presents this as a shortfall, in terms of the bit that's been earmarked for the grant, that has essentially remained steady.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? No, thank you very much. Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. And sorry, just for clarity, for the previous item that the committee agreed to confirm. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Town Clerk. Item 5 was for decision. Can I ask the committee to confirm that you are content that we have identified our key risks and that we have also taken confidence from the risk management update and mitigation subject to the comments made?
Yeah, and with the detail regarding the mitigation.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So subject to the timeline and an update to members, which I think we can do probably on an interim basis before we meet next time. Yes, nods approved.
Thank you, Chair. So the next item is item 7, which is the Natural Environment Charity Review update on fundraising work streams. This is for information on pages 61 to 66.
Excellent. Joe, hello, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Just to update further since the piece was written, the Transform Partnership, who are our chosen partners for the fundraising research, they're proceeding well with the brief and have been collating information from key officers, members and external groups. And their report is due later this summer, perhaps into the early autumn. The biodiversity net gain assessment has concluded now, and that was presented to members on the 24th of June. And that recording, presentation and report are available for those unable to attend. Happy to take any further questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. Sally and Kim, I think, are doing a great job. I was very pleased to hear that they had such an engaged meeting with the Friends of West Ham Park. And I know they have met with a number of members here and taken a number of ideas away. So I really look forward to seeing, digesting and us discussing that report. And likewise, great to see that Mott MacDonald have highlighted some opportunities in West Ham on the BNG and the potential for habitat units to generate some income on that space, which I've spoken to Jane about, but I think it'd be good. We'll probably have a follow-up in terms of what that means specifically for the park. Questions, comments? Yes, Catherine.
Read the BNG, just following on. Yeah, it'd be really useful to know what this means for West Ham Park, because this report doesn't actually say, yes, West Ham Park will gain from that, and that's really important to us.
What I've said to Jane is I think what we'll do is we'll send around the whole presentation and just highlight the section, the compartments section that focused on West Ham Park, particularly the opportunity for grassland expansion and the soil piece as well, which I thought was excellent and ties in very much into the plan that we've got in place. Caroline. Oh, sorry, was you? Oh, sorry.
Can I just add on BNG that it's an opportunity, but whether to proceed with that depends on a complex mix of demands on every single land site. These are really complex areas that we're managing. So we've done this piece of work. It's information that's presented back to the site managers, the superintendents and others to then go with those committees and go through what's actually the most beneficial thing for each of those sites in that complex mix. So it's one opportunity that makes a whole palette of different things that could be possible at those sites. So that information's back to staff and to you to look at what might be the best solution for each of those things.
Just on that point, Joe, what's the timeline in terms of us then considering that and then thinking about what the corporation position will be across the board before we then think about the individual spaces or compartments?
I think that's a really interesting question, and it really depends on some other things that are still being done on every single land parcel to do with how it's held and what those opportunities are. West Ham Park is fairly straightforward, as you can see from some of the later reports that are coming through. That's really down to land managers now to look at what those different conflicts are, what those opportunities are and what they want to proceed with. There's certainly no let's go or a particular deadline that we're working to here, although I think Mott MacDonald were pretty clear that now is an excellent time to be starting.
You're absolutely right. I mean, that's where I was getting to with, I think it's almost over 150 significant infrastructure projects. I mean, I don't know, my view was, I don't know what other members' view was, that we, you know, in terms of the due diligence on prospective developers, in one sense, the government would be the ideal partner for us and some of those projects. And in one sense, we wouldn't want that window to close, those to all proceed, and us to be left with, in effect, the sort of lower tiers of developers that would probably never meet our or be able to sort of pass our due diligence in terms of our own values and how those are applied to the spaces. Thank you, Joe. Thanks very much. Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. Item 8 is the Natural Environment Charity Review Charity Assets Update for West Ham Park. This is for information on pages 67 to 76. Chair.
Back to you, Joe.
Hi, yes, me again. This one, it's a for information report detailing land assets held by the charity. In the case of West Ham Park, this one's fairly straightforward. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Catherine.
I'm afraid I don't really understand what the two land parcels, I know they're very small, are shown on the plan that you've submitted. What are the implications? What are they? And
oh yes. Joe, I don't know if you've got that. It's on page 73. Two tiny little slivers. One is called EGL 76291, aptly named.
I am not sure if Anna. No, I am afraid I'm not able to give you here any further
she
detail.
Does. Anna is waving.
Oh, brilliant.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. These plans have just reflected the different titles in which the assets of the charity are held. So the significance is just that they didn't come over with the main park title. They've been subsequent small acquisitions where the intention was very clearly that they should be held by the West Ham Park charity. So that there are no implications.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Anna. Any other comments? No, thank you, Joe. Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. Item 9 is questions on matters relating to the work of the committee. I'm not aware of any, Chair.
I've had no questions other than those I have already asked in this meeting on the risk register. Seeing no further questions from members.
Thank you, Chair. Item 10 is any other business that the Chair considers urgent. I'm not aware of any, Chair.
No.
We now move to item 11, which is exclusion of the public. Do members agree to exclude the public?
Members, we contend to exclude the public at this point. Agreed.
Thank you. Please pause while we stop the live stream. And public, can you please leave the room?